Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Subhanallah. Okay, guys, this is going to be a short vlog, but I think it's an important one again. Subhanallah. Sadly, I mean, we don't, and that's good, but at least for our ulama ikram, there should be a little bit of credence in understanding the mystery religions and their beliefs simply because they're externalizing their doctrines onto the ummah. So it's important that we kind of have some level of understanding, some grasp over their doctrines and their beliefs so that we can see exactly what they are doing. Now you'll see there's a huge movement, subhanAllah, on the ummah with respect to transgenderism. And I've made reference that at the echelons of this fraternity, the higher ups, they believe in the perversion of the feminine and the masculine. And when I say the perversion, I mean the mixing, the graying, the merging of the two, which they would call an Aphrodite. And this is why when they symbolize Ibliss, lanatullahi, we see Baphomet, which is a goat. The goat is given a humanoid figure, but both masculine and female attributes. So you see the goat has breasts, but at the same time has a phallic symbol, and then the goat is pointing down towards a black moon, a crescent, and pointing up towards a light moon crescent. And this is again the two opposing forces. And then what you find is at the center of the forehead, above the forehead, between the horns, is a torch, which is interesting because there's a hadith that relates to Shaitan, Iblis, lanatullahi alayhi, having his horns between the sun. And that again is reference to divinity, at least for them, and light and wisdom. And this is what that torch and then the flame bearer, the light bearer, and Prometheus, and all these other occult repackaged doctrines basically insinuating. Now there's a huge drive to push this whole transgenderism even on children, to the extent where basically they do not now encourage giving titles of he and she, or even refer to them as he or she. And they call it gender fluid. Na'uzubillah min zalik. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Iblis lanatullah took an oath saying that he would distort, he would make insan ungrateful for their form, the way they had been created, and he will then um, 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 manipulate that creation and make them ungrateful. So in other words, ingratitude would be that if I was a male, I would have the desire to become something other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me as. And there's this huge drive, and that's in the middle of masonry. You see the checkered board, which is white and black. You see the Union Jack, which is the, again, red and blue, which are two opposing colors. Cold and hot, and land and sea. It's in the cardinal directional colors again, and that's all steeped in masonry. But anyway, very quickly, I just wanted to show you something. Is interesting enough, they show Azazel as a scapegoat, right? And this is an interesting spin, right? A scapegoat is a person or an animal which takes on the sins of others, or is unfairly blamed for problems. Now, this is in Leviticus, and you can see that Iblis lanatullah lays grubby fingerprints all over this, right? We understand he was called Azazel, and claiming unfairly being blamed for other people's sins. I guess references over here to what Hawa and Adam alayhi salam maybe did in Jannah when they approached the tree that maybe they perhaps shouldn't have, right? And being unfairly blamed. And this is something that I guess even in on the day of Qiyamah, he will sidestep and move away and say, I merely whispered to you, but the action was your own doing, and will not want to take responsibility out of fear and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and retribution and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah. Now, what's interesting again is this whole goat um, well, all the content that's steeped in this particular symbol is very ajib. So I mean, if we go back, subhanallah, again, Azazel being known as a scapegoat and then a goat as well, and then for the masonry and the satanic elite to actually depict their I guess Ibliss lanatullahi in a symbolic form as a goat. And don't forget, goats are actually, when you do the culling of goats, by the way, this is science now, biology. If two goats of without horns, hornless goats, mate and they have offspring, it's very ajib and very interesting that 1 in 5, and this is a scientific study, will produce a Aphrodite goat, which is a hermaphrodite goat, which is basically a goat which externally looks like a male, but internally has female. I mean, sorry, yeah, internally has female organs, right? And it's interesting that they would use that to symbolize Iblis lanatullahi, and this is a very, I'm sure you've come across this, and it's quite steeped in the occult, but not many people have deciphered and really um, explained or exposed what this symbolism really maybe represents to them. You've got the phallic symbol here again, and you've got the white snake and the black snake. That's the two opposing forces, and this is something I've referred to and referenced over and over again whilst doing a science PDF and everything that I've archived onto the channel, that the religion, the pure Luciferian doctrine that they seek to bring about is basically the two opposites and merging them, right? Which they would then believe that when you merge these two opposites, right, again, even the body, the breasts, and then the phallic symbol, which is, well, without sounding too crude, is basically the penis, but this is referenced in a very masculine kind of way and not necessarily entirely sexual as we conventionally kind of maybe understand it. And then what you've got over here is, as a result of this, one would become divine and have the divine light and the third eye, and this is a religion that I referred to that the Dajjal lanatullahi will bring. It's interesting that we understand that Dajjal lanatullahi won't be interested in um, females, as it were, in terms of this kind of attraction. This is my understanding of it, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me if I've obviously misinterpreted anything or any of that. But it's just interesting, and I thought I'd actually put that forward. And it's important that we understand these things. Why is because, like I said about the book from Alice Bailey, which actually has the logo here. Let's take a look at it. Externalization of the hierarchy. Externalization of the hierarchy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. But if you look at this book and the front cover, what we see is a logo. Hold on, let's look at a clear one, which at the front of it has the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reversed and crossed out. And this book is absolutely essential, not only reading, but they're actually uh, working relentlessly to bring about this externalization of the hierarchy. And when they say the hierarchy, they're referring to now the other parda, the other veil, and the other side of that. And the hierarchy they're referring to is Iblis lanatullahi and significant others back into our realm and externalizing his wishes into alam-e-wujud, which is the alam of insan. And this book is all about that, and it basically, there's a lot to learn from it in terms of what they intend and what they're doing right now in terms of social engineering, politically, religiously, and then trying to set about this world religion for Dajjal lanatullahi, the Antichrist, to then basically take the reins of when they are well and ready to introduce him to their great work, which would be, I guess, engineered humanity, so that they're that much more easy to assimilate again into this false spiritual religion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and guide us. I thought I'd just basically maybe perhaps um, um, archive this, and maybe inshallah ta'ala it could be of any benefit. Again, I had shared a link to this book with our beloved ulama kiram, as essential reading. I know you're very, very, subhanAllah, busy, but with what's going on in the world, I think these sort of things are very essential just so that we can understand the source of many things that are occurring and the method behind that madness and who is actually behind, so that we can have a vantage point and start piecing up what really is actually occurring and see the pattern, and maybe perhaps be in a better position to then maybe defend the ummah from these very, very satanic level attacks. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and guide us. Again, Jazakallah khairan wa sallam, jazakallah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.